Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue a discussion on Vampire the Masquerade in the World of Darkness. We, of course, have been talking about the various characters, players in the scheme of Vampire the Masquerade. And today for you, I have a second generation, Enoch, otherwise known as the Wise. So Enoch, of course, was the first true childer of Caine. Whether the lovers truly exist or not, which I talked about last week, hard to say. But Enoch himself is considered the first true childer that existed. He had been a king of his city, a king of his people. But when he and his people came upon Caine, met with Caine, they saw the mark. They understood the power. And Enoch willingly gave up his kingship to such a great character, such a great being. And of course, though, Enoch desired the embrace, desired what Caine was, and managed to eventually convince him, to work him down, to convince him to embrace him. And much to the archangels, those that sort of watched after Caine's chagrin, Enoch became a child, a vampire himself. And of course, Caine then did name this city, the one that would become the first city, Enoch, after his first childer. Enoch is thought to have existed for nearly 8,000 years, starting from around 10,000 BC to going around 2400, where the theoretical deluge had already occurred. Regardless, we're not exactly sure the exact timing, because he is a mythological figure, a second generation. Now, Enoch was within the first city, the city of Enoch, until the deluge destroyed it. Granted, Enoch itself was a city much similar to our modern cities when it comes to talking about vampires. In modern city, we have a prince ruling. Caine ruled the old one, with the second generations, Enoch and its kin, below there, and the third generation below there. Which there were theoretically none embraced after that, but that's an entirely another story. Regardless, though, Enoch found himself in a very powerful position, and he did at least embrace three. The ones that we suspect because of his own abilities that were said to be in existence. Enoch's particular abilities, particularly relating to Auspex, which is said to be a key ability of him. We know of at least three childer that are confirmed. Arakel, which would lead to Toreador, Malkov, leading to the Malkavians, and Salut, leading to the Salubre. There are a number of other vampiric bloodlines which connect themselves to Enoch, but it's hard to say which of those are actually of his bloodlines. They're only possible childer. These three are the only one we can really connect to him. Enoch was known for his wisdom, so he was an advisor to Caine in the first city, basically the vizier to Caine's kingship. And that's why this insight idea, the Auspex idea, exists within them, and it is understood that his childer have it. The other possible childer are Ashura, who would eventually found the Bali, or said to have found the Bali, Bruja, who of course found the Bruja, Zmiche, and Ventru, founding their clans itself. Though it again is impossible to really say if they are directly descended from Enoch himself or another of the second generation. We'll talk about them more when we kind of get to there. Some of the antediluvians, it's hard to place which of the three core second generation they could have come from. Effectively, Enoch's bloodlines are known as the seer bloodlines. Now the Semiche, of course, as I said, claim to be progeny, though they have their own information that says that, but it's not confirmed in other locations, so that's why it's up in the air, as certain ancient texts kind of mention it, but they could be hinted at, others not. Now, there is some problems that exist here, because the fact is that some of the other clans that claim to be childer of Enoch himself, it actually could be referring to the fact that Enoch, like other second generations, embraced of their own bloodline instead. Mm-hmm. Yes. Embraced of their own bloodline instead. So rather than being an actual childer of it, they could actually be children of Enoch, of his family, that once they came to an age and were embraced, may have been embraced by Enoch himself, or another of the second generation, convinced by Enoch might not have wanted to embrace one of his sons and instead had one of the other second generations do it for him. See kind of the explanation here, that with how the ancient texts are interpreted by vampires more into today, we're hard to understand where the exact connections come from. But we know there was some familial bonds in here which connect together, and one of the reasons that there are these problems. There are two things that are very interesting here that I really should say. First off, it is suggested within the book of Genesis that Enoch was a child of Caine. Whether this means that as a vampire he could have children, or it's somehow connected together, there is a suggestion of that somewhere that exists. Also, similarly, texts suggest that Iriad is the biological son of Enoch. So there's a lot of connections here, biologically, not just vampirically bloodline, between some of the characters that might actually exist within this ancient city, which make it so interesting and so complex that it's hard to tell where everything connects together within the transitions from the second generation to the third generation. But when we talk about some of the other second generations, we'll dive a little bit more into this complexity. And a lot when we hit the third generation, the antediluvians. But anyway, that's it for today. I introduce you to Enoch, the true first child of Caine, at least according to texts. The first one that existed until he was slaughtered by his children himself, the antediluvians. Enoch is a figure that is shown to be great in wisdom, great in sight. Did this wisdom or sight protect him from his own child's betrayal? Maybe not. But maybe he passed some of that on to them that might hint at the bloodlines below him, which there are countless that might be, but might not be. The complexity of this old age, because it is old stories, because it is old myths, because it is written down in books that are ancient, is impossible to really dive out, to get truth. We only have the information that we can find in these old texts and teach us. But I hope you're having a great day. If you have any ideas about which antediluvians are connected to Enoch, beyond the three that are definitely suspected, the seer bloodlines, let me know in the comments below. Give me some interesting reasons and storylines, whether they are biologically connected or vampirically. I would love to hear your theories on this one. Anyway, until the next time, I bid you farewell.